Okay, so there are literally millions of different species on our planet, right? From the tiniest bacteria to the biggest blue whale, it's just mind-boggling. So how in the world did we ever start to make sense of all that? Well, today we're going to dive into that epic quest to classify all of life.
Now really, just stop and think about it for a second. If it was your job to organize everything that's alive, where would you even begin? It's a massive puzzle, and it's one that stumped and fascinated people for, well, forever.
So why do we even bother classifying things? I promise it isn't just some dusty old scientific habit. Turns out it's a fundamental part of who we are. You know, our first attempts at this stuff, they had nothing to do with science or biology class. It was all about survival. Pure and simple. Like, can I eat this plant or will it kill me? Is that animal going to eat me? What can I use to stay warm? It was all just super practical. The first real scientific crack at it came from Aristotle. He used simple, visible stuff, like whether animals had red blood or not. Fast forward a couple of thousand years, and a guy named Linnaeus simplified everything into just two big buckets, plants and animals. But the real game changer? That didn't come until 1969, thanks to R.H. Whittaker. Now, that two-kingdom system? It was a huge step forward for sure. But as our tools got better, especially, with the microscope, some major cracks started to show up in that neat and tidy plan. The beauty of this system was just how simple it was. You were either a plant or you were an animal. That's it. Super easy to get your head around, easy to teach. But, as it turns out, nature is way, way messier than that. And this simplicity started causing some major headaches. I mean, you had tiny single-celled organisms just tossed into the same box as huge, complex creatures. And get this, fungi, which don't make their own food at all, were somehow grouped in with plants. It was just wrong. It basically created this whole drawer full of biological misfits that didn't really belong anywhere. So the bottom line is, the system just broke down. It couldn't handle the new discoveries. Science needed a much better, more accurate map of the living world. The old one just wasn't cutting it anymore. And this brings us to the big breakthrough. So let's roll the clock forward to 1969. Enter R.H. Whittaker, who comes along with this radical new system that pretty much turned biology on its head. So Whittaker came along and said, okay, forget just looking at what things look like on the outside. He proposed a much deeper set of rules. He was asking the really important questions. What are your cells actually like? Are they simple or complex? How is your body put together? How do you get your food? And maybe the biggest one of all, what's your family tree? Who are your evolutionary ancestors? Those were the questions that were going to unlock the whole thing. And by using these criteria, Whittaker built these 5 totally distinct kingdoms. You can see right away how Monera stands out. It's the only kingdom with prokaryotic cells, the simple ones, without a nucleus. Then you look at things like cell walls and how they eat, and you get these crystal clear dividing lines between fungi, plants, and animals. It just makes so much more sense. First up, we have Kingdom Monera, and its only members? Bacteria. These are the prokaryotes. This is life at its most basic, with super simple cells, but don't let that fool you. They have an absolutely incredible, mind-blowing range of ways to get energy and survive just about anywhere. All right, next up is Protista. Now this kingdom is fascinating. A lot of biologists call it the catch-all drawer or the junk drawer of biology. Basically, if you're a single-celled organism, but you've got a complex eukaryotic cell, one with a nucleus, you probably get put in here. It's this super important link between the simple bacteria and the other 3 complex kingdoms. And the diversity in this group is just wow. For example, you've got diatoms. These tiny little guys build these beautiful, intricate shells out of silica, and they're basically the foundation of the entire ocean food web. They produce a huge chunk of the oxygen we breathe. Then you've got protozoans, little hunters like the amoeba, which we think are the ancient relatives of all animals. It's just an incredibly important and varied group. And look, Kingdom Fungi finally gets its own proper spot. These are the planet's great decomposers. And let's be clear, they are not plants. They're heterotrophs, meaning they have to absorb nutrients from other things. And their cell walls? They're made of a tough material called chitin, totally different from the cellulose you find in plants. And now we get to the familiar Kingdom Plantae. These are the multicellular, photosynthetic powerhouses of our world, all with strong cell walls made of cellulose. From the tiniest little moss to the tallest redwood tree, they all belong right here. And finally, we have Kingdom Animalia. Hey, that's us! We're all multicellular eukaryotes. The big things that define us are that our cells don't have a rigid cell wall, and we're heterotrophs. which is just a fancy way of saying we have to eat our food to get energy. Okay, so 5 neat boxes, everything sorted, problem solved, right? Well, not so fast. What about all the weird stuff that doesn't seem to fit anywhere, even in this brilliant new system?
Yeah, here's the catch. Whittaker's system is amazing for anything made of cells, but it completely leaves out these really strange things that live on the fuzzy border of our definition of life itself.
This brings us to a huge philosophical question. We usually say living things have to have cells, but viruses, they're not made of cells. Outside of a host, they're basically as alive as a grain of sand. But the second they get inside a living cell, they hijack the whole operation and start making copies of themselves.
So what do you think? Are they living? Are they non-living? It's a question that scientists are still debating to this day. There's really no easy answer.
And believe it or not, it gets even weirder. In 1971, scientists discovered something called viroids. These things are just a naked little piece of RNA. They're even smaller and simpler than a virus. They don't even have that protective protein code. And yet, they can still cause serious diseases in plants. It's wild.
And this, right here, is probably the most important thing to take away from all of this. Science is never finished. It's not a book of facts, it's a process. As we learn more about life and evolution, our systems for classifying it are going to keep changing. What we have today is just our current best draft.
And here's the thing. This story is absolutely not over. Not by a long shot. Actually, a lot of scientists today use an even more detailed 6-kingdom system, or something called the 3-domain system. It's all about refining our understanding. So, as we keep exploring these insane places, like the bottom of the ocean or the hottest deserts, you have to wonder, what else are we going to find out there? And what new kingdoms will we have to invent just to make sense of it all?